Why do people who accomplish nothing always have the loudest opinions about your success? You know exactly what I'm talking about. The moment you start winning, the moment you begin to rise above the ordinary, certain phrases start flowing from the mouths of those around you like poison from a serpent's fangs. You're just lucky. 4 words that reveal everything about the person speaking them and nothing about you. When someone reduces your years of discipline, your countless hours of practice, your willingness to sacrifice what others won't, to mere chance, they are confessing their own relationship with excellence. They are telling you that in their mind, success is random, achievement is accidental, and greatness is a lottery ticket. This is the first poison they inject into conversations, hoping it will seep into your consciousness and make you doubt the very foundation of your accomplishments. They want you to believe that your dedication meant nothing, that your persistence was pointless, that your vision was just blind stumbling in the dark until you accidentally tripped over success. But here's what they will never understand. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. The person who has trained their body every single day for 10 years doesn't get lucky when they win the championship. The entrepreneur who studied market patterns, refined their skills, and built relationships for years didn't get lucky when their business succeeded. The artist who practiced their craft in solitude while others watched television didn't get lucky when their work was finally recognized. When you hear these words, you are listening to someone announce their own limitations. They are telling you that they believe success comes from external forces because they have never experienced the internal transformation that creates it. They are revealing that they have never felt the satisfaction of earning something through sheer will and effort, so they cannot recognize it in others. It's not fair. The battle cry of the permanently defeated. When someone looks at your achievements and declares them unfair, they are making a profound statement about their understanding of how the world works. They believe that everyone should receive equal outcomes regardless of unequal efforts. They think that your willingness to work while they sleep, to study while they party, to sacrifice while they indulge, should somehow be ignored by the universe. Fairness to them means that your discipline should not give you advantages over their laziness. It means that your courage should not reward you more than their fear rewards them. It means that the universe should handicap your strengths to accommodate their weaknesses. But life is not fair in the way they imagine it should be. Life is fair in a much deeper, more profound way. It gives back exactly what you put in. It responds to the energy you invest. It mirrors the commitment you demonstrate. The person who plants seeds and tends their garden will harvest more than the person who complains about others' crops while their own field lies barren. When they say it's not fair, they are really saying, I don't want to do what you did to get what you got. They want the reward without the work, the destination without the journey, the crown without the fight. They are announcing that they believe they deserve what you have earned without earning it themselves. You think you're better than us. The most revealing phrase of all, when someone accuses you of thinking you're better than them simply because you refuse to settle for mediocrity, they are exposing the cage they have built around their own potential. They are telling you that in their world, growth is arrogance, improvement is betrayal, and excellence is an insult to those who choose to remain average. What they cannot comprehend is that thinking you can do better and thinking you are better than others are completely different things. The person committed to continuous improvement is not motivated by superiority over others, but by the desire to maximize their own potential. They are not trying to diminish anyone else, they are trying to honor the possibilities within themselves. But for those trapped in mediocrity, your growth becomes a mirror that reflects their stagnation. Your progress becomes a reminder of their own unused potential. Your achievements become evidence of what they could have accomplished if they had made different choices. Instead of letting this inspire them, they choose to resent you for it. When they accuse you of thinking you're better than them, they are really saying your growth makes me uncomfortable with my lack of growth. They are admitting that your presence reminds them of their own unrealized dreams, and rather than use that as motivation, they prefer to try to pull you back down to their level. You've changed. The ultimate expression of their fear. When someone observes your growth and expresses it as a negative change, they are revealing their own terror of transformation. They are telling you that they preferred you when you were limited, when you were struggling, when you were more like them. Change, to them, is betrayal. Your evolution is abandonment. Your improvement is evidence that you no longer belong to the tribe of the average, and this threatens their sense of security in that tribe. They want you to remain exactly as you were because your previous limitations made them feel better about their own. But growth is the most natural thing in the universe. Everything that lives grows or dies. The tree that stops reaching toward the light begins to wither. The muscle that stops being challenged begins to weaken. The mind that stops learning begins to stagnate. You have not changed in some fundamental way, you have simply started honoring your nature as a growing, evolving being. When they say you've changed, they are really saying, I'm afraid of change. They are confessing that they have chosen stagnation over growth, comfort over challenge, familiarity over possibility. They are asking you to shrink back into the smaller version of yourself, so they don't have to confront the possibility of their own expansion. Easy for you to say. The refuge of those who refuse responsibility for their own circumstances. When someone dismisses your perspective with these words, they are announcing that they believe your ability to see solutions is somehow unfair, that your capacity to remain optimistic in the face of challenges is a luxury they cannot afford. What they fail to understand is that your current perspective was earned through your previous struggles. Your ability to see opportunity in difficulty was developed by choosing to look for it when you faced your own challenges. Your optimism was forged in the fire of your own adversities, not handed to you by easier circumstances. When they say easy for you to say, they are refusing to consider that you might have insights worth hearing precisely because you have walked through similar difficulties and found a way forward. They are choosing to remain victims of their circumstances, rather than students of someone who has transcended similar circumstances. The phrase reveals their commitment to helplessness. They want to believe that their situation is unique, that their challenges are insurmountable, that their problems are more complex than anything anyone else has ever faced. This belief protects them from having to take action, but it also imprisons them in their current reality. Must be nice. The passive-aggressive expression of resentment disguised as casual observation. When someone looks at your achievements, your possessions, your opportunities, or your experiences, and offers this seemingly innocent comment, they are injecting poison into the conversation while maintaining plausible deniability. These three words carry the weight of their envy, their bitterness, and their unwillingness to create similar experiences for themselves. They are simultaneously acknowledging that what you have is desirable, while implying that you didn't earn it or deserve it. They are creating emotional distance between themselves and your success while positioning themselves as victims of unfair circumstances. What makes this phrase particularly insidious is its false innocence. The speaker can always claim they were just making an observation, just expressing a harmless wish, just commenting on your good fortune. But the undertone is unmistakable. Resentment wrapped in the appearance of casual conversation. When they say must be nice, they are really saying, I want what you have, but I don't want to do what you did to get it. They are expressing desire without commitment, want without will, envy without effort. They are choosing to remain spectators of the life they claim to want rather than participants in creating it. You don't deserve it. The final, most venomous expression of their jealousy. When someone looks at your achievements and declares that you don't deserve them, they are revealing the depth of their own sense of unworthiness. They are projecting onto you their own belief that good things don't come to people like them, so they certainly shouldn't come to people like you. This phrase exposes their fundamental misunderstanding of how merit works. They believe that deserving something is determined by external judges, by popular opinion, by some cosmic sense of fairness that should distribute rewards based on their personal sense of who should get what. They cannot grasp that you deserve what you have because you created it, earned it, or attracted it through your thoughts, actions, and energy. When they question your worthiness, they are really questioning the entire system of cause and effect that governs achievement. They want to believe that success is arbitrary, so they don't have to confront the possibility that their lack of success is not arbitrary. They want to believe that your achievements are undeserved, so they don't have to examine whether their lack of achievement might be self-created. The person who says you don't deserve it is announcing their own relationship with deserving. They are telling you that they don't believe they deserve good things, so they cannot tolerate the cognitive dissonance of seeing someone else receive what they want but don't feel worthy of having. Each of these phrases is a window into the speaker's soul. They reveal beliefs about how success works, attitudes toward personal responsibility, and the level of possibility they allow themselves to envision. When you understand what these words really mean, when you recognize them as confessions rather than criticisms, they lose their power to disturb your peace or derail your progress. The person who truly understands the nature of achievement recognizes these phrases for what they are: the sound of caged birds criticizing the flight of the free. They are the complaints of those who have accepted limitations arguing with those who have transcended them. They are the voice of the crowd trying to convince the individual that conformity is wisdom and mediocrity is virtue. But you were not born to live within the boundaries others have accepted for themselves. You were not created to apologize for your growth or to minimize your achievements to make others comfortable with their lack of achievement. You were not designed to shrink your light so that others might feel better about their darkness. When these poisonous phrases come your way, and they will come as surely as the sun rises, remember that they are not about you. They are about the person speaking them. They are confessions of limitation masquerading as observations about you. They are the sound of people announcing their own ceilings while trying to convince you that those ceilings are universal laws. The warrior's path requires you to develop immunity to these mental toxins, not because you are better than those who speak them, but because you have work to do, growth to achieve, and potential to realize. You cannot allow the fear-based projections of others to contaminate your vision or compromise your mission. You must learn to hear these words without absorbing them, to witness these attacks without internalizing them, to remain focused on your path while others try to convince you that the path doesn't exist. How do you respond when someone tries to poison your mind with their limiting words? Do you defend yourself? Do you argue back? Do you try to prove them wrong? Every one of these reactions gives them exactly what they want: your energy, your attention, and your emotional disruption. The untrained mind reacts to every provocation like a flag flapping in the wind, but the disciplined mind remains still like a mountain, unmoved by the storms that rage around it. When someone attacks your achievements with jealous words, your response reveals everything about your level of mastery. Watch what happens inside you the next time someone says you're just lucky. Feel that immediate surge of defensiveness. Notice how your mind immediately begins constructing arguments, gathering evidence, preparing to justify your success to someone who has already decided not to acknowledge it. This reaction is natural, but it is also a trap. The moment you begin defending your achievements to those who are committed to diminishing them, you have entered a battle you cannot win, not because your arguments lack merit, but because the other person is not arguing from logic. They are arguing from emotion, from envy, from their own sense of inadequacy. You cannot reason someone out of a position they did not reason themselves into. What is the alternative? The way of water. Water does not fight the rock, it flows around it. Water does not argue with the dam, it finds another path. Water does not defend itself against those who call it weak, it simply continues flowing until it carves through mountains and shapes continents. When someone tells you it's not fair, you have a choice. You can explain to them how fairness actually works, how their understanding of equity is flawed, how your success was earned through sacrifice and discipline, or you can simply acknowledge their perspective and continue on your path. Which response moves you closer to your goals? The person who wastes energy explaining fairness to those who are committed to seeing unfairness will find themselves constantly pulled into battles that serve no purpose except to drain their vitality. The warrior understands that not every challenge requires engagement. Sometimes the greatest victory comes from not fighting at all. This does not mean being passive or weak. This means being strategic about where you invest your energy. A true fighter chooses their battles carefully. They do not waste their strength on opponents who are not worthy adversaries but are simply seeking attention, validation, or the opportunity to drag someone down to their level. When someone accuses you of thinking you're better than them, what they are really asking for is reassurance. They want you to diminish yourself to make them feel better about their own lack of growth. They want you to apologize for your progress, to minimize your achievements, to pretend that your development was accidental so they don't have to confront their own potential. The untrained response is to immediately reassure them. No, I don't think I'm better than anyone. We're all the same. I just got lucky. But every time you shrink yourself to accommodate someone else's insecurity, you betray your own growth and reinforce their limiting beliefs. The trained response is different. You neither agree nor argue. You simply remain centered in your truth. You might say, I believe in continuous improvement, or I'm committed to becoming the best version of myself, or you might say nothing at all. You refuse to apologize for your growth while also refusing to use your growth as a weapon against others. This balance requires tremendous internal discipline. It requires you to be secure enough in your achievements that you don't need others to validate them, and humble enough in your humanity that you don't use your success to diminish others. It requires the emotional maturity to understand that other people's opinions of you are not your responsibility to manage. When someone observes that you've changed with that tone of disapproval, they are asking you to return to a smaller version of yourself. They are requesting that you abandon your growth to preserve their comfort. They want the old you back because the old you made them feel better about themselves. The warrior's response is to honor the truth in their observation while rejecting the judgment they attach to it. Yes, I have changed. I continue to change. Growth is the purpose of life. You acknowledge the fact while refusing to accept their implication that change is somehow wrong or disloyal. This response does something powerful. It forces them to confront their own relationship with growth. When you unapologetically embrace your evolution, you hold up a mirror to their stagnation. Some will be inspired by this mirror, others will resent it. Your job is not to control their reaction, but to remain true to your path regardless of their reaction. The phrase "easy for you to say" is designed to invalidate your perspective before you've even finished expressing it. It's a preemptive strike against wisdom, an attempt to disqualify your insights based on the assumption that your circumstances make your understanding irrelevant to their situation. How does the warrior respond to this deflection? Not by arguing about the difficulty of their own journey, not by comparing struggles or competing for victim status, but by maintaining focus on the solution being offered. Yes, it may seem easy for me to say now. What I'm offering you is what I learned when it wasn't easy for me to do. This response acknowledges their perspective while redirecting attention to the value being offered. It refuses to get trapped in the comparison game while maintaining focus on forward movement. It demonstrates that you understand where they are while insisting on pointing toward where they could go. When someone dismisses your success with "must be nice," they are trying to create emotional distance between themselves and your achievements. They want to categorize your success as something foreign, something that happens to other people, something unattainable for people like them. The warrior's response is not to list the sacrifices you made or the challenges you overcame to achieve what you have. That would be playing their game, accepting their premise that you need to justify your success. Instead, you might simply say, "It is nice, it's available to you too if you want it." This response shifts the conversation from scarcity to abundance, from exclusion to inclusion, from resentment to possibility. This type of response does something remarkable. It forces them to confront their own agency. When you refuse to play the victim of circumstances and instead point to the availability of what they claim to want, you challenge their commitment to helplessness. Some will be inspired to take action, others will find new reasons why it's impossible for them. Your job is to plant seeds of possibility, not to force them to grow. The most toxic phrase, "you don't deserve it," requires the most disciplined response. When someone questions your worthiness, they are trying to plant doubt about your fundamental right to success, happiness, and achievement. They want you to internalize their belief that good things should not come to people like you. The untrained response is either to defend your worthiness or to secretly wonder if they might be right. Both responses give their words power over your consciousness. The trained response is to recognize the projection for what it is, their own sense of unworthiness speaking through them. You might respond with something like, "I created what I have through my choices and actions," or you might choose not to respond at all. The key is to remain unmoved by their attempt to shake your foundation. Your worthiness is not determined by popular vote or external validation. Your deserving is demonstrated by your creating, earning, and achieving. But the true warrior's response goes beyond these individual phrases to address the entire dynamic. When you understand that jealous words are really confessions of limitation, when you recognize that attacks on your success are actually cries for help from those who feel trapped in mediocrity, your entire approach changes. You stop taking these comments personally because you understand they are not about you. You stop defending yourself because you realize there is nothing to defend against. You stop arguing because you recognize that the other person is not really arguing with you, they are arguing with their own unrealized potential. This understanding allows you to respond from a place of strength rather than reactivity, from wisdom rather than emotion, from compassion rather than defensiveness. You can acknowledge their struggle without accepting their limitations. You can understand their pain without absorbing their toxicity. The master of this art learns to transform every jealous attack into fuel for further growth. When someone says you're just lucky, you are reminded of all the preparation you did to be ready when opportunity arrived. When someone claims it's not fair, you are reminded to be grateful for your willingness to do what others won't. When someone accuses you of thinking you're better than them, you are reminded to remain humble while continuing to grow. This transformation is not immediate or automatic. It requires practice, like any other skill. It requires you to catch yourself in the moment of reaction and consciously choose a different response. It requires you to develop the emotional discipline to remain centered when others are trying to pull you off balance. Start with awareness. Notice your automatic reactions to jealous comments. Feel the surge of defensiveness, the urge to justify, the temptation to argue. Don't judge these reactions, simply observe them. Awareness is the first step toward mastery, then practice the between the other person's words and your response. Create a moment of space. In that space, remember who you are and what you're building. Remember that their words are about them, not you. Remember that your energy is precious and should be invested in growth, not in defending against those who are committed to tearing down. Finally, choose your response consciously. Sometimes this will be words that redirect the conversation toward possibility. Sometimes this will be silence that refuses to engage with toxicity. Sometimes this will be a simple acknowledgement that neither validates their attack nor escalates the conflict. The goal is not to win these encounters, but to remain undisturbed by them. The goal is not to change the other person's mind, but to protect your own mind from contamination. The goal is not to prove your worth, but to continue building your worth regardless of who recognizes it. This approach requires tremendous inner strength, but it also builds tremendous inner strength. Every time you refuse to be baited into defensiveness, you become more centered. Every time you choose your response rather than react automatically, you become more disciplined. Every time you transform an attack into fuel for growth, you become more powerful. The person who masters this art becomes virtually unshakable. They move through the world with quiet confidence, undisturbed by the opinions of those who are committed to mediocrity. They continue growing while others argue about whether growth is possible. They continue building while others complain about the unfairness of the building process. This mastery is not about becoming cold or disconnected from others. It is about becoming so centered in your own purpose that external turbulence cannot knock you off course. It is about developing such clarity about your path that the confusion of others cannot cloud your vision. It is about building such genuine confidence that the insecurity of others cannot shake your foundation. When you reach this level of mastery, something remarkable happens. The same people who once attacked your success begin to respect it. The same individuals who once tried to diminish your achievements begin to ask for your advice. The same voices that once spoke poison begin to speak possibility. Not because you changed them, but because you refused to let them change you. Not because you won the argument, but because you transcended the need to argue. Not because you proved your worth, but because you demonstrated it through your unwavering commitment to your path. What happens when you become so focused on your mission that the opinions of others fade into background noise? What transforms when you reach a level of authentic power where jealous words can no longer penetrate your consciousness? This is the ultimate destination of every warrior's path, the place where external validation becomes irrelevant and internal strength becomes unshakable. The person who has mastered their response to jealous attacks is still playing on someone else's field. They are still operating in reaction to what others say and do. But there is a higher level of mastery where you transcend the entire game. You reach a state where jealous words are not something you need to defend against because they cannot reach you where you truly live. This transcendence begins with understanding the difference between ego-driven success and authentic achievement. Ego-driven success is always dependent on comparison, validation, and recognition from others. It feeds on being better than, having more than, and being recognized as superior to those around you. This type of success will always attract jealous attacks because it is built on a foundation of separation and superiority. Authentic achievement flows from a completely different source. It comes from the desire to maximize your own potential, to serve something greater than yourself, to create value that lifts others while fulfilling your own purpose. This type of success does not require anyone else to be diminished for you to shine. It does not need external validation because it is validated by the internal satisfaction of aligned action. When your success comes from authenticity rather than ego, jealous attacks lose their target. How can someone diminish what you have built when you built it not to impress them but to express your truest self? How can they question your worthiness when your worthiness comes not from having more than others but from being more than you were yesterday? The shift from ego-driven to authentic success is not just philosophical, it is practical. It changes how you work, what you work toward, and why you work at all. Instead of asking, how can I be better than my competition? You ask, how can I be better than I was yesterday? Instead of seeking recognition for your achievements, you seek the satisfaction that comes from aligned action. Instead of building to impress others, you build to express yourself. This transformation in motivation creates a transformation in results. When you are no longer working to prove anything to anyone, you can focus entirely on the work itself. When you are no longer seeking validation from others, you can validate yourself through the quality of your effort. When you are no longer comparing yourself to others, you can compete only with your own potential. The person operating from authentic power does not need to defend their success because their success is not an attack on anyone else. They do not need to justify their achievements because their achievements justify themselves through the value they create. They do not need to respond to jealous comments because those comments are trying to wound something that no longer exists, the need for external approval. But how do you reach this level of authentic power? How do you transition from defending your success to transcending the need for defense? The answer lies in understanding what true confidence actually is and how it is built. False confidence is built on external foundations, the opinions of others, comparative achievements, accumulated possessions, or status symbols. This type of confidence is always fragile because it depends on things outside your control. When someone attacks these external foundations, the entire structure becomes unstable. True confidence is built on internal foundations: your commitment to your values, your alignment between your actions and your purpose, your knowledge of your own character and capabilities. This type of confidence is unshakable because it depends only on things within your control. When someone attacks these internal foundations, they are attacking something that their words cannot reach. The process of building unshakable confidence begins with knowing yourself so completely that no one else's opinion can shake your self-knowledge. This means understanding your strengths without arrogance and your weaknesses without shame. It means knowing your values so clearly that you can recognize when you are acting in alignment with them and when you are not. It means being so honest about who you are that you cannot be manipulated by those who want you to be someone else. This self-knowledge becomes the foundation for authentic action. When you know who you are and what you stand for, your choices become expressions of your character rather than attempts to gain approval. Your work becomes a manifestation of your values rather than a performance for an audience. Your success becomes the natural result of authentic effort rather than a prize you win by impressing others. As you build this foundation of authentic action, something remarkable happens to your relationship with criticism and praise alike. Both become information rather than identity. When someone praises your work, you can appreciate their recognition without becoming dependent on it. When someone criticizes your efforts, you can evaluate their feedback without being devastated by it. This emotional equilibrium is the hallmark of authentic power. The person who operates from this place is neither inflated by praise nor deflated by criticism. They are centered in their own sense of purpose and progress, using external feedback as data to consider rather than verdicts to accept or reject. When you reach this level of centeredness, jealous attacks become almost irrelevant to your experience, not because you have built better defenses against them, but because they are trying to hit a target that no longer exists. They are trying to wound your need for approval, but you no longer need approval. They are trying to shake your external foundations, but your foundations are now internal. They are trying to make you doubt your worth, but your worth no longer depends on their recognition. The person who has achieved authentic power responds to jealous attacks not with defense or counterattack, but with something much more powerful: indifference born of security rather than arrogance. They are so focused on their mission, so committed to their path, so aligned with their purpose that external noise simply cannot penetrate their concentration. This indifference is not cold or disconnected. It is the warm indifference of someone who is too busy creating to spend time defending what they have already created. It is the confident indifference of someone who knows that their worth is not determined by popular vote. It is the purposeful indifference of someone who has more important things to focus on than the opinions of those who are not walking their path. When you operate from this level of authentic power, you begin to influence others in ways that defending yourself never could. People are naturally drawn to those who are secure in themselves. They are inspired by those who are so committed to their purpose that external turbulence cannot shake them. They want to learn from those who have found a way to be successful without needing to prove their success to others. This influence happens not through what you say but through who you are. Your very presence becomes a demonstration that it is possible to achieve great things without diminishing others, to be confident without being arrogant, to be successful without being defensive. You become living proof that authentic power is more attractive than ego-driven success. As others begin to recognize this difference, the nature of your interactions changes completely. The people who once attacked your success with jealous words begin to ask different questions. Instead of "how did you get so lucky?" they ask "how did you develop such focus?" Instead of "it's not fair," they ask "what would you do in my situation?" Instead of "you think you're better than us," they ask "how can I improve like you have?" This transformation in others is not something you try to create, it is something that happens naturally when you embody authentic power. People can sense the difference between someone who is trying to impress them and someone who is simply expressing themselves. They can feel the difference between someone who needs their validation and someone who is validated by their own alignment with their purpose. But reaching this level of authentic power requires you to give up some things that your ego might want to hold on to. You must be willing to succeed without getting credit, to be right without proving others wrong, to be powerful without dominating others. You must be willing to let your work speak for itself rather than spending energy defending it to those who are determined not to hear it. This requires a fundamental shift in how you measure success. Instead of measuring by external metrics like recognition, comparison to others, or approval from the crowd, you begin measuring by internal metrics like alignment with your values, progress toward your goals, and the quality of your effort. Instead of asking what do others think of what I've accomplished, you ask, am I becoming who I'm capable of being? The person who makes this shift discovers something remarkable. They become more successful by traditional external measures precisely because they stop focusing on those measures. When you are no longer working for approval, you can work more creatively. When you are no longer afraid of criticism, you can take bigger risks. When you are no longer comparing yourself to others, you can focus entirely on maximizing your own potential. This paradox is one of the fundamental principles of authentic power. The less you need something from others, the more likely you are to receive it. The less you need their approval, the more they are likely to approve of you. The less you need their validation, the more they are likely to validate you. The less you need their recognition, the more likely they are to recognize you. But here is the key: by the time this recognition comes, you no longer need it in the same way. You can appreciate it without depending on it. You can enjoy it without being controlled by it. You can receive it without being defined by it. This is the ultimate freedom: to be successful on your own terms, appreciated for who you really are rather than who you pretend to be, recognized for authentic achievements rather than manufactured impressions. It is the freedom to wake up each day focused on your mission rather than on managing others' opinions of your mission. The path to this freedom is not easy, but it is simple. It requires you to know yourself completely, to align your actions with your values consistently, and to measure your progress by internal rather than external standards. It requires you to build your confidence on foundations that no one else can shake, and to derive your satisfaction from sources that no one else can contaminate. Most importantly, it requires you to accept responsibility for your own emotional state regardless of what others say or do. This means refusing to give anyone else the power to make you feel good or bad about yourself. It means recognizing that your emotional reactions are your responsibility, not the responsibility of those who trigger them. When you take this level of responsibility for your inner state, jealous words lose their power completely. Not because you have built better defenses against them, but because you are no longer vulnerable to them. You have become like the mountain that remains unmoved by the storms that rage around it, not because the storms are not real, but because the mountain's foundation is deeper than the storm's reach. This is the destination of every warrior's journey, not to become invulnerable to attack, but to become so grounded in authentic power that attacks cannot reach what matters most. Not to become indifferent to others, but to become so centered in purpose that others' opinions cannot derail that purpose. Not to become isolated from the world, but to become so connected to your true self that the world's noise cannot drown out your inner voice. When you reach this level of mastery, you discover that the jealous words that once seemed so threatening were actually gifts in disguise. They were challenges that forced you to develop authentic confidence. They were tests that revealed where your foundations were weak and needed strengthening. They were teachers that showed you the difference between ego-driven success and authentic achievement. The person who has learned to transform jealous attacks into fuel for growth, who has developed the discipline to respond rather than react, who has built unshakable confidence on internal foundations, has not just learned to handle criticism. They have learned to handle life itself with grace, power, and authenticity. This is your invitation not just to defend against the poison of limiting words, not just to respond skillfully to jealous attacks, but to rise above the entire battlefield, to build something so authentic, so aligned, so purposeful, that the opinions of those who are committed to mediocrity become as irrelevant to you as the barking of dogs in the distance. Your life is your message. Your character is your legacy. Your authentic power is your gift to a world that desperately needs examples of what is possible when someone refuses to settle for less than their full potential. The jealous words will always come, but they no longer have the power to stop you. You have become unstoppable. Not because you are invulnerable, but because you have learned to move forward regardless of what others say or think about your movement. The path is before you. The choice is yours. The power has always been within you.